Welcome back to the Rise with Anita podcast, or welcome if this is your first time here. This is a space for conversations that honor ambition and the human behind it. Today, I'm joined by Brandi Munguia, a world-class speaker, business strategist, and the founder of the Her Collective. And also, she is a mother, a leader who has many hats, and a woman who understands what it means to evolve in public and in private. Brandi spent 6 years as an executive director at Mastermind, working alongside Tony Robbins and Graziosi, where she helped create and lead high-impact programs that supported thousands of entrepreneurs around the world. Her work has shaped leaders at scale, not just in strategy, but in how they relate to themselves. But today, Brandi carries a message that feels especially relevant in this moment. Heart, hustle, heal, rise. It's a framework born from not only professional success, but her lived experience from navigating leadership, motherhood, identity shifts, and personal transformation. Beyond the stages and the strategy, Brandi is someone who has walked her own path of healing, including a powerful weight loss journey that reflects a deeper commitment to alignment, self-trust, and honoring the body rather than forcing change. What I appreciate about Brandi is her willingness to tell her truth about leadership, about coaching in industries, and what it takes to sustain success without losing yourself in the process. Before we dive in, I'm going to ask, let's take a moment to arrive together. If you're willing to take a breath with me, inhale slowly through your nose and exhale fully through your mouth. Allow your shoulders to soften. Let your body settle. This conversation is an invitation not to push harder, but to come back to what's real. So Brandi, I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, this is such an honor and a privilege to get to share this space with you today and to serve your audience from our hearts. And I know this is going to be an open and transparent conversation. So for those listening, take with you what resonates, leave what doesn't, but just know that you're in the safety of this container right now. And we're here to have this heart to heart today.
I'm so excited. And for those of you who don't realize, I first found out about Brandi during my MBA journey. That was a big part of me getting into entrepreneurship and taking my first step. And I remember watching her on stage and just being completely enamored, even though it was virtual because post-COVID. But I remember being like, holy crap, look at her go. And then I followed along the journey. She's actually been someone that I used to ask about growing on social media. And so I've had this full circle moment that I just want to sit here and honor you for, because I think it's so beautiful. And I'm so excited to see how you're actually currently evolving as well. And I'm just so honored.
Oh my goodness. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing that heart. And I received that. I received that with so much love and light. Truly, it means the world to me. To have these conversations knowing that I seek to serve in every space I step into, so that because I resonated with you, it is not by accident that we're in this conversation today. So thank you so much for sharing your heart and for not giving up on your dream to be here and to lean into your heart and your purpose and following through in that for yourself. So it's an honor to have been a spark in that journey with you. And thank you for saying that.
Well, absolutely. Again, for me, I love to bring real conversations and people who've not only inspired me, but are just walking the path. And a lot of times when I look at the podcast, I usually say it's a space where soul meets strategy, because I don't think you can do it one without the other.
I agree wholeheartly. And I think that was one of the biggest things I ran into in the spaces that I was in, is that it was always, Brandi, you're so emotional, that doesn't work. And I'm like, no, it does though. That's who I am. And I agree with you, soul meets strategy, people before profit. You when you serve, you sell, it's not about, your impact, your contribution, the way you show up in this world, that is your business card. It is, your essence is everything. And when I committed to just being unapologetically me, it was everything truly aligned and worked out along the way. And I just became more of me. Even when people would challenge me, I just became more of me, where I was like, if I just keep showing up as I am, and I truly like authentically am me, genuine, like who I am, then maybe that person will trust genuine authenticity exists. That maybe when they see me 6 months from now, a year from now, and I'm growing and whatever that may be, that they trust that authenticity exists in this world, on screen, off screen, in front of people on stage, and behind the scenes. The biggest compliment I could ever receive, aside from what you just shared with me now, is that when people do meet me in person, they say, you're exactly how you are on Zoom. You're exactly how you are on stage. And I'm like, that's the point. That's the point. Showing up organically, authentically, genuinely you, and everything that you do matters. And yes, you can be the love in this industry. You can be kind and still get paid a very high value. It's these points that I'm glad that you bring that forward, that there is soul and strategy. I know that you're going to come across in people in this industry that are all strategy and no soul. And they are just like, burn yourself out. There's like this hustle culture. And it's like, you can have success and your balanced life. Like, yes, with business, it's not work-life balance, it's work-life integration. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's this decision to be who you are organically, authentically, without the burnout. And the success can happen naturally. So I'm glad that you said that. That's a very, very true piece, that soul and strategy can coexist.
I'm so grateful that we're starting it off like this. I usually, before I like to dive into kind of what would be around your resume or kind of like speaking points, I usually ask a simple question.
Yeah.
What is bringing you joy in 2026 so far?
Oh my goodness. I love this so much. I would say honestly, in this era that I've stepped into, I feel a deep resonance with the expansive people I'm aligning with. Like truly, it brings me so much joy to be able to be all of me and align with the most aligned people that want to work with me, that are like, I'm getting to work on some really cool projects and being brought into some really cool pieces with my clients. And that brings me so much joy to like, not only get to exercise my ability as a strategist and as someone who's, architecting these great containers and experiences for people, but to truly be like in my fullness and to be received so well in a space that is just like, I don't know how to explain it. It's amazing. Like I had such a great experience in my previous career and all the alignment I had there and all the opportunities and things I got to do. But stepping into my arena of building my brand out, expanding that, has just been so fulfilling on so many levels, on just who I am as a person. And the other caveat of my joy too is watching my daughter. Like my daughter always brings me joy in my family unit, like my husband and my daughter. And my daughter is this example of, she's 10 years old, so she's at this pivot point. And I was at the mall yesterday with my friend and her daughter, and the two girls are, off playing, and she goes, we've got preteens. And it was this moment that just like, I was like, you're right. I was like, don't ever say that again. Like, I was like, I can't believe they're preaching. What's happening? No, they're like getting ready for a little school dance. And I'm like, stop. And it's like, it just like brings me so much joy to watch this little human just like truly be who she is in all of her essence. And watching that, and I have moments where I'm reminded of like how far I've come to have been able to give her a life she doesn't have to recover from, so like giving her a life that can be all of her. And she's so confident. My daughter is so confident. She's so just full of life. And she's in that stage where she's having to navigate some things with, with school bullies and stuff like that. But she's so like, it's interesting to my greatest joy is being her mother. It truly is my greatest joy. Outside of business, my daughter is my entire world, like my entire being of why I do what I do and how I do what I do, and for all the reasons are as an example for her. And she's my greatest joy and my greatest accomplishment in this life.
Aw.
Truly. I'm gonna cry on this podcast today. I can feel it. I already stopped myself earlier when you were sharing your heart. I like stopped myself. I'm like, I got welled up. And as soon as I start talking about my daughter, I'm gonna get welled up. Like, woo,
Well,
but
embrace the vulnerability.
I know. I'm just, with anyone that's listening that has kiddos or has, people you love in your life, like there's nothing like watching these like, oh, it's just amazing. It's a gift, truly. So, anyways.
Well, I'm going to hit you with another question about your daughter because you brought up an interesting point, which was you have been working hard to make sure she lives a life that she doesn't need to heal from. So, what would you say is one tactical way that you've been able to do that so that she can not have to deal with the generational trauma that most of us are working through?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question because there's no perfect way or perfect framework for parenting. There's just not. Where I want to encourage the listener is that we have to seek personal development and healing within yourself. When you heal yourself, when you truly spend that time with expanding and really doing those inner workings of releasing the generational traumas and the traumas you experienced in your life, and really getting into a state of self-awareness and mindfulness and exercising all the tools that you learn along the way, not just hearing them and putting them in a toolbox, but actually exercising them to lead that example and to be mindful of where we compartmentalize with our children, that our children are not our therapists. They are not meant to carry adult problems. And that when you incur adult things in your adult life that are tough or difficult, to be able to compartmentalize that away from your children. And my daughter is so stabilized, but she's also very intuitive. And so times that she can tell, like, oh, is everything okay? And it's like, everything's fine. Like really being able to keep them into a state of calm where like, our house is our home. She's allowed to be in any room at any time. Like she does not have to wait. Even with me in business and working from home, she knows the cadence of like, if she walks in my office, like that she's not going to be, stop. Like she's very like involved in everything that I do. My business is built around my life, not my life built around my business. My daughter's my priority. My business is not my priority. My daughter is. And as much as I'm great at business and I love business, my daughter is my priority. And when I look at the work, the amount of work that I have poured into my own journey of healing, because my pain was never my daughter's to absorb. My behaviors, my patterns, they're not for her to absorb. Will she lead in example? She's going to watch my behaviors, my patterns. She's going to mimic them. And there's certain things that I had to become aware of that I did not want my daughter to mimic and did not want my daughter to replicate in her system. And so I needed to work through those things on myself, through therapy, through, all different modalities, healing modalities that I've done to be where I am today, because I had a lot of trauma. And my trauma is not for my daughter to carry. And there's certain aspects where she gets confused, where she's like, she because I lost both of my parents by the time I was 19, my daughter never got to meet her grandparents, so she gets confused on certain aspects. But I don't have to unload the details to her of what happened to my parents and like the tragedies and the traumas that are attached to that. When she's older and she's curious, we can have those conversations. And really protecting her naivety. That's so important as a parent, is to protect her naivety. And there were times too where I had to realize like that, these kids, they're growing up in technology. And
Mm-hmm.
so where we were trying to keep up with the times and be like, her friends have a tablet or her friends have a phone. And then she had a phone and she had a tablet. We recognized she's just not developmentally ready for something like that. Just so much like behavioral interruption from just constant information. So removing the devices and then giving her more creative outlets, things like that, that are like, she's in a state where as parents, it's our responsibility to self-regulate so that our children can be regulated. Because if we don't self-regulate, they're going to replicate our dysregulation. And so I really learned how to regulate myself. And I'm not a perfect mom, okay? There is no perfect mom in this world. I've had moments where I have overreacted and went back and apologized to my child. To apologize to her and say, you know what? I shouldn't have raised my voice like that. I'm so sorry. That was not okay. I should have not talked to you like that. I needed to calm down. I needed to ground myself. I'm so sorry. Like it's like that part. I think a lot of us that grew up in very reactive environments, we had some of those patterns bleed into our own parenting. And so if we don't disrupt those patterns and we don't heal those parts of us or those pains in us, they'll come out. And so when I started recognizing some of those patterns coming up, I addressed them and I would work through them in some of my other, in therapy or in, tapping, breathing, all the different things to reprogram my nervous system. That's not things I want to replicate in my own system and in my own home. So that self-awareness piece is really, really important. And I think a lot of parents think that, therapy is like the one thing, and it's like, it's not though. There's many different healing modalities. Yeah. And therapy is one of them and can be absolutely helpful. And there are systematic modalities that can also be helpful to reprogram the feeling in the body when stress arises and stuff like that. Like, yeah, my daughter was the biggest reason that I pursued my healing journey. The biggest reason. Because not just, holding this small life on the outside of my body and being like, I'm responsible for this small human. Like, what? But it was the awareness of how I was, how things were unresolved in my life, the pains I still carried, the things that were within me that I just did not want her to ever absorb as her own. And I had to be aware enough in myself to be like, I got to deal with these things. I don't ever want that to happen again, or I never want that to happen to her. Like, it was just all these things, So, that was a very long answer to your question, but hopefully that's helpful to the listener to hear that, to distill that down is it's really on the self. Every parent has their own journey, but it is the self-awareness to have the courage to start addressing some of the things are unresolved, and to have the courage to get the help you need, and get the tools you need, and then to follow through on those pieces and let it compound over time so that you can become the parent that you needed, but ultimately where your children won't have to recover from.
Oof. I love this. And actually, ironically, I think a little bit of, I'm not a mom yet.
That's okay.
But a part of me, when I started my healing journey, was I had enough awareness that I had patterns around my relationship with my father that had I not resolved and started to work on those, was going to bleed into relationships that I would call in. Yeah. And so I was just like, oof, if I don't work on this, I'm just going to get an exact mimic of what I'm afraid of with him. Yeah. Yeah. And so it kind of was something that I was resisting at first, but I had this awareness where I refused to date solely because I was like, I need to get at least started. Yeah. And then if a person along the way comes in, fine. But I was just like, there is no way. And then because I just turned 31 like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I love it. I
And
love it. I love being in our 30s. I do. I truly love it. I'm 35. I'll be 36 this year. And it's such a journey in our 30s. Like it really is. It's like something happens when you turn 30 where you're like, I'm an adult now, actually. Like
actually, literally. Oh my gosh.
something
And
happens when you cross that threshold of 30 where you're like, man, I'm a real adult now.
yeah, up until like 28, 29, no, was not an adult. But
Yeah,
now
you're
I'm
still
officially
like,
an adult.
you're like, I'm in
And
my
I'm supposed to have my
20s.
shit together.
Yeah, I know. I get it. So
And
good.
so there was this like whole moment of like when people would be like, so do you want kids? And I'd be like, yeah, but I had patterns that I know that I need
Yeah.
to heal
Yeah.
because even I don't, like I said, I don't have kids, but I would
Okay.
see these patterns that would play back out in my
Yeah.
relationships with my mom or
Yeah.
grandparents or whoever it is. And it doesn't
100%.
matter. And
Yeah.
it's like, I've looked at it and I've had these moments where I'm like, ooh, if we don't work on this is going to carry on to a poor innocent child that is just like,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
sign up for this.
Yes. And how to equip them when they do come across the family members that are triggers for you. Because, when it comes to healing, you can heal within your own home, but you still step outside of your home. And those kiddos have to know how to regulate with adults that are maybe not safe adults or very unhealed adults, things like that just we navigate. And honestly, at the end of the day, if there was something I could share with you and with the audience is that you never have to explain yourself to people and your personal choices on why you choose to do things. It's
Yeah.
like we all make our own choices and we get to a spot that some people it's almost like an automatic question when someone asks you like, are you going to have kids? And you're just like, I want children and I'm also navigating this part of my life. But there comes a point that says the next time someone asks you like, are you going to have children? And be like, that's kind of an inappropriate question, isn't it? Like, and it kind of throws them off because they're not expecting that kind of response. Like when you
Yeah.
respond that way, and it's not you being rude. It's just you reminding them that is actually kind of an invasive question because some people struggle. They struggle with infertility. They struggle with that they haven't found the right partner yet, or maybe they choose not to have children. And when that's when people like say I don't want kids. Why would you not want children? And it's like they have their own personal choice decision. They should not have to explain themselves. And it comes to that point where like I've exercised this as like a recovering people pleaser, that when people ask me really uncomfortable questions, I will just say like, when they ask why, and I'm like, wow, like, I actually don't have to explain myself. And there's
Props
a
off for that.
pause. There's a pause there that feels uncomfortable for you and uncomfortable for them. Because in fact, they don't actually want you to explain yourself. They just know that they asked a question that was a really like invasive question. And it's okay for you to respond in a way that shuts off the invasive response. And we get to a point where we don't have to explain to people why we make the choices we do or do the things that we do. And it's not rude. It's not you being, spicy. It's like you just being like honest. Like, I don't want to talk about that. And when I say, I don't have to explain myself, it just really ends the conversation right there. And they're like, oh, okay, well, anyways, something else awkward. And I go, I know that's awkward. I just don't want to talk about it. Like that's just like how we can divert away from people pleasing conversations of making them feel comfortable with a question they just asked you that made you uncomfortable. Where the thing is that you don't have to respond to someone who's already uncomfortable and you're making yourself uncomfortable trying to make them comfortable when they're already committed to being uncomfortable. I know that's like kind of sounds like a mouthful because it is, but it's true. It's the only way that we start to heal that people-pleasing behavior and allow ourselves to protect our peace,
Yeah, this is something I'm currently working and navigating because total people pleaser, like
Same
live life for someone else.
Yeah, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm always like, I will catch myself still to this day where I'm like, dang it, I should have said, dang it. Like it's a journey. It's a journey for sure. Because we learned love by self-abandonment. And so when like we learn as we're healing through people pleasing that like you can be loved without self-abandoning, and it's like very clear when those people come forward that truly like appreciate you and love you without you abandoning yourself or explaining yourself, and you're like, this feels weird. And by default we try to people please. But it starts to get better. It really does, I promise you.
Yeah, it was funny. Like, one of my coaches was like, "What is one of your major goals for 2026?" And I was like, "You know what? I'm giving up people pleasing." And he was like, "Are you sure about that?" And I was just like, "Yes, but talk to me in 3 months. We'll see how that goes."
Yeah, I know. It's truly like where the micro people pleasing things you can start working on is the next time someone opens a door for you, say thank you instead of I'm sorry.
Oof.
The next
Yeah.
time your waiter asks you if you need a refill on your drink, say yes, please, thank you, instead of I'm sorry, yes. Stop apologizing for your existence. When someone holds the door in the elevator, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We have to stop leading with I'm sorry and just start leading with thank you.
Yeah.
Or
Actually,
pardon me, excuse me, right? Yeah.
which that just opens up the whole wheelhouse of being open to receiving.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. And receiving unapologetically. Which is why I started practicing I receive that. When someone says something so kind to me like you did earlier today, I practice that I receive that. Thank you. That means so much to me. It really does. And I learned how to start using that language to reprogram my brain to receive kindness because I used to have a visceral response to receiving compliments or receiving
Yeah.
kindness to me, because it's so easy for me to give. It is not easy for me to
To
receive.
receive. I'm the
Yes,
same way.
yes.
I'm the same
And
way.
I didn't realize how bad it was until there was an exercise I did at an event, where it was like these people, they all circled around you and you sat in the middle, and every person took turns pouring into you, telling you positive things about yourself, telling you like, and I was physically shaking, like physically about to have a panic attack because I couldn't handle being poured into. And it's such a resistance in my system because of how anytime I was given kindness, I was equally given unkindness that would negate the kindness that was just given. So I could never trust kindness given to me, which is why I became a presence of giving kindness, because it was like, if I can't receive it well, I sure as heck am gonna give it like unconditionally, give kindness without expectation, just truly giving love and kindness. Like that was my spirit to do that for others, but for others to do that to me, my system was like, help. Like it's just, I'll never forget. I have some incredible friends, like truly incredible friends, and one of my friends was like pouring into me. She like had her hand on my shoulder and she was like, Brandi, I just want you to know, like, you are truly one of the most, like, and she just starts like pouring into me. And I just like physically start shaking and like, I'm like crying. And she's like, it's okay. Like, receive it. Like, she was holding the space for me, holding the space and telling me, receive it. Just say,
Yeah.
I receive it. And I was just like, just so thrown off, because as people pleasers, as people who've been abused, as people who have been shown conditional love majority of our life, and that self-abandonment equaled love, that when other people pour into you, it's like, this is a weird input. I'm not used to this input. And so having to retrain the brain and body around positive input, because we know positive output. I can give positive output all day.
Yeah.
Now, my body does have a visceral response if I have any negative output. I don't do well with negative output. I can't, it's hard for me to be negative, but I had to reframe like objectivity, constructive feedback, that's not negative. That's just constructive. It's meant to help someone grow. So it's not being mean. It's just being very direct. It's being very clear. It's being very objective when emotion should not play a role in objective decisions. And in business, I had to learn how to be objective so that my emotion wasn't driving the vessel all the time, that I could be kind but firm. I could be kind and loving and still make really tough choices, move the needle in business where things needed to have band-aids ripped off. Like there are times where it's where you have to be objective, not nice. Like nice isn't always kindness, if that makes sense. Okay.
Absolutely.
You can be kind and objective. Like, you know, but sometimes you have to make decisions without being nice about it. And it doesn't mean you're mean. It doesn't mean you're you know, a rude person. It means that you have to be able to rip off band-aids, bridge gaps, find someone's blind spots and communicate that effectively. Because like as a strategist, as someone who comes in as a strategic operator for people's businesses, man, do I have to be clear, concise, and direct. And I can still be kind and loving and have my heart center and be direct and clear and concise and be able to make really tough decisions where I have to say, we have to reframe that person's role, or we got to get them out, or we have to be able to pull the plug on this project so we can go all in on this project. Like there's so many things, decisions you have to make in business where people pleasing does not play a role. Because sometimes people got to learn the consequences of their own behavior, friends, and that you should not be people pleasing your way out or making that a soft landing, because they need to learn the hard truth and the hard lesson attached to their lack of performance, their lack of follow through, their lack of commitment, loyalty, whatever it may be, that they got to learn the consequence of their own behavior. And you do not have to make that landing soft for them. And that's the part where we can hold space for people, okay, in our ability to hold space and like truly give transformative containers for people to grow in. But we also have to hold space for the accountability factor. And that doesn't make you mean, it doesn't make you wrong. But we sometimes we have to like adjust people, not please them. And when we hold them accountable to their behaviors and their outcomes of like, hey, this is the consequence to your behavior. Okay. You don't get to have a relationship with me. You don't get to come into my container for free. You don't get to come in here and bully me. You don't get to come in here and treat me that way. You don't get to talk to me like that. Right? When we hold someone accountable to that, it's like one of the biggest things I've done with a lot of founders and owners. And I hope it's okay. I'm kind of going down this rabbit hole here, but with founders and owners, the biggest bottleneck is often themselves, because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, I'm going to tell you right now, any owner, any operator, any like founder, CEO, if you own a business, run a business, or are a leader in a business, you cannot lay on your own sword for the soft landing of someone who's underperforming, who is not a right fit, who disrespects your business, your brand. I don't care if it's a family member you hired as a temporary thing that became long-term and they are actually not a fit for that role. Reframe them or remove them. Or if you have an employee that you thought you just really saw their potential and they did not fulfill on that potential, where's your return on investment, my friend, right? Because if you're going to pay someone's salary and they're not going to perform, you got to make tough choices. And that's the part where like, that's the discernment, the deep discernment that I've really cultivated over time, that I have a heart. I'm not heartless, but I am also willing to make really tough decisions so that there can be a better outcome faster than suffering with people pleasing. And you would rather hurt someone's feelings now so that they can learn the consequences of their lack of or whatever it may be, and they move on. They always find a way. And sometimes with some businesses, what's really tough for some owners is they have to make impossible choices. They have to make impossible choices when they have to let go of good people because they cannot afford to keep them on. They cannot afford to scale their brand. They can't afford to keep a person on at their worth. So they have to make really tough decisions when they have to let good people go. And I have to remind them that they're not a bad person when they have to make an objective business decision, and that that person that they let go who was a good person, a loyal person, and the business is suffering, and it's not because of that person, but the business is suffering as a whole. The business is often suffering because of the owner, not because of their operators sometimes. And when they got to make tough choices, sometimes they got to look at themselves. And that's a tough mirror to look into sometimes too. So holding the space for that emotional and necessary process, that's something I love to do and facilitate. And when we look at holding that space and the safety of that space, the reason we became people pleasers was because it wasn't safe to be authentic. It wasn't safe to speak your truth. So we made ourselves small. We made our energy smaller. We tried to soften the blow, and we were just being true and transparent and all of the things that we would say, and someone didn't like that. And so we have to be able to be firm anyways. And as people pleaser tendencies is be firm anyways, be truthful, be in your integrity, be who you are, all of you, and let them navigate their feelings about it. And if it's not in alignment with you, you get a choice to leave. You don't have to tolerate people's behavior. Now, if they're challenging you out of constructive feedback and you're being challenged, then lean into the challenge. Where could you grow? Where could you shift? Where do you need to take feedback, right? Because there's that part of the coin too. Self-awareness, like we talked about earlier. Man, will you have some great mentors in your life, and your business will teach you some things for sure. Where do you need to lean into that growth too? You know? Anyways, long story long. Didn't go down that rabbit hole, but it's that part about emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Like, people pleasing isn't a bad thing, but it becomes a thing that is not necessary to be loved, to be successful. And it's something we have to learn to retire in our life, because there's times for appeasement, okay? In business and in things where we give grace, there's appeasement moments, not at the compromise of your own self-sacrifice, you know?
Oof. That's a mic drop right there.
I'm like, what other question, you know? That was a good question. That was a great question. I had faceted answers to. And for the listeners, if it wasn't clear, I am ADHD, so the threads were threading there. So hopefully we built a beautiful tapestry with that one.
You know, as you were speaking, one thing that really came to mind also is something I found myself saying a few days ago. It was, it's not always what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah.
And that is the art.
It's true. That is the art. You know, I feel sometimes when I'm talking, my tonality will change. And it's just something I've like learned in as I'm talking to different people, different types of people. Like, sometimes I drop into more of my masculine energy when I'm speaking with certain types of people or clientele, or when I'm being challenged. And I know that there's time and place for being fully in my feminine energy, and how to balance those two effectively. As your business owner really has to have that balance of the two. And masculine and feminine are not just male and female for the listener. No. That might be like, what do you mean? You know, it's very much a strength and a grace that coincide within each other. And it's very interesting to navigate those different pieces, because I'll tell you, when you're communicating with titans, people that are really high up in the industry or high net worth individuals, you got to be able to hold that space, and you got to be able to hold it with true tenacity. Like, the word that comes forward is that tenacity. It's a courage state you have to be in when you are challenging high net worth individuals and challenging business owners and challenging clients and peers. There's a time and a place for it, and you don't have to shrink down when you see things that need to be brought forward and addressed. And
So,
it's all in the intention to move the needle positively, right?
yeah. Actually, I wasn't going to go here, but now that you've kind of touched on it, how do you dance between your masculine and feminine as a business owner? Because I find that there's a time where you need to be guns down in my hustle mode, and then there's a time where it's like I have to just receive and allow that to come in. So how do you make that balance? Because I find that as a female in business, that can be such a interesting dynamic, especially now that we're in this odd era that half the ladies are still in their like boss girl babes situation, and then the other half are in like soft girl era. I don't want to do anything, and so you're somewhere teetering between.
Yeah, you see a lot of contrast. Yeah, I get that. And here's where I'll say is I'm blessed and deeply grateful that I have my husband is my absolute rock in my life. My husband is probably my biggest support system in everything that I do. And I know that there's a lot of business owners that may not have their partnership, and so they sometimes it feels like you're on an island. And there are things that I do in my business that my husband is not aware, or like he doesn't understand what I do. I've been in the entrepreneurial space for over 8 years, and that man still does not understand what I do, and that's okay. He didn't even understand what I did on the stages that I did things on. Like he was like, "I'm so happy for you, honey. I don't know any of those people though. Love you though. Love you." And it was one of those things where I'm like, and I had to realize how I dance with it is where my audience, my true, I speak majority of the time, I really resonate with other women, because like women as a whole, we are diverse, very diverse. We can carry deep mental load. It's like we have this ability to just like thrive in chaos, but success is chaotic. So why not thrive in the chaos of success? And our masculine energy, when I drop into that, is when I'm really in a state of stability where I need to stabilize something very and not that my feminine energy doesn't stabilize, it does. It's that my feminine energy is where I've allowed my heart to come forward in certain ways, where I will foster safety, I will foster the care, I will foster my creative and all these things. And the masculine energy, when it comes forward for me, is when I am holding firm on presenting information. Like when I'm putting together a proposal, or I am, because I want to be very logical. And my masculine energy likes to be very logical. My feminine energy likes to be very emotional. And it's just, and I also too, where my husband holds a softness for me in a way where he's successful in his own right. Okay. My husband's not an entrepreneur. He's very, my husband's like blue collar, loves what he does. I think that man will die on his hill. He will never stop working with his hands. Okay. He's a brilliant man. Absolutely brilliant. Like when it comes to business leadership, he's incredible. I'm like, get in here, babe. You are an entrepreneurial spirit. And he's like, that's for you, babe. Love you though. That's that part, right? It's like you can't expect your partner to know everything that you want for yourself. Okay? And I mean this with love to the listeners here that either have a partner or are desiring a partnership in their life. You cannot expect your partner to have the same entrepreneurial vision that you have, okay? I accept my husband and love him with my entire heart and spirit. I could not be where I am today without him. Truly, love him to his absolute core. And I do not expect him to jump on the entrepreneurial train with me. Do I want him on my train? Of course. Yes, please get on here. Hello? But I had someone put this in perspective for me, was that saying, you know what? My husband, although I keep wanting him to be a passenger, what if he's the vessel? What if he's the person that surrounds me to go 150 miles an hour? He lets me drive, but he holds that space for me. He allows me to be all of me, even if he doesn't understand what I'm doing. That alone is masculine energy. Okay? He does not try to overtake me. He does not tell me I'm wrong for being an entrepreneurial. He has his seasons where he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm more than sure. But it's those things where he wants to protect me from pain. So he gets question marks when I get wild hairs as an entrepreneur. And I'm like, I'm going to do this big thing. And he's like, you got it, babe. Question mark. Yes, I believe in you. But at the end of the day, I trust myself to execute. That's my masculine energy. I trust myself, but that's also my feminine energy. Like, I trust myself wholeheartedly more than anything. I'm grateful that I have his support. Sometimes I haven't had his support and I've done things where I'm like, I'm just going to do it anyways. Like, I trust myself, And that's when I tend to drop into my masculine where I'm like, I don't need anyone. I can do this. I'm fine. But then my feminine is like, but you do need people. So settle down and let people love you. So it's one of those things, like, it's kind of a loaded question because every individual is going to do this dance with themselves. But where I want to speak to the listener that goes to the extremes on these two, okay? Because you can be a boss girl, babe, okay? And have the most supportive husband that's totally masculine, supports you wholly, and maybe he makes less than you. Don't expect him to come up to your kingdom. He wants to sit in the kingdom with you and support building it. But don't emasculate him, because he's the most loving, kindest support you've ever needed in your life to be your fullest self.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part. The other part is like, my husband is if by my last name, okay, Munguia. My husband's a Mexican man. There's traditional values that come with that, okay? And traditional values are like, women are meant to be homemakers. Women are meant to be mothers and provide for their husbands and all these things. So I do that, and I'm also a boss babe, okay? At the end of the day, I am happy to wear these hats that are mine. I drop into my feminine with my husband. He's the one person I can be quiet with. I know that's hard to believe here, listeners, but he is the one person that I can sit in silence because he holds safety. He holds safety. Yeah. And he doesn't expect me to be anything other than me. And I can be all of me. He has seen all the feral aspects of my life, like truly. And he has taken me as I am housebroken now. But I have feral moments, don't get me wrong. But he's so, he's so patient. And but in my business, he doesn't make those decisions. I do. So when I look at where I'm in my masculine, it's trusting myself to do the hard stuff. It's trusting myself to build, bootstrap. It's trusting myself to put out, things that stretch my nervous system, and trust my feminine to be able to hold that space for the times my masculine's like, we're going to do this thing. And the feminine's like, you're going to do it. So that's what it's like. It's what it's like.
Really is.
Yeah, you gotta live in the gray. There's some people that go really extreme, and I was like, listen, as a female entrepreneur, I have my very my moments where, like, I don't know what people call it, where they say like trad wife or whatever, where I'm like, listen, I will host the best parties for my family, and I'll go all in on host mode, and I need a day to recover from that. You know what I mean? Like, I can cook dinner for my husband every day with love and care, and build proposals and teach, and it's not an either or, my friends. It's an also and. Simple as that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, because you talk a lot about moving from hustle to harmony. What does that actually look like in real life, not just conceptually?
Whew, this is so good. Okay, we're a hustle culture, and I might not be the best voice to hustle culture because I know the hustle. I know the grind of working, working like, there was a time I was traveling so much. I was gone for I hate to admit this, but it was true. The hustle is where you should never compromise what's most important to you for hustle. Okay? It's not worth it. It's not. The hustle is, yes, will you have moments where you are going full, like, do not take your foot off the gas for your success, but don't do it to the point where you never take your foot slightly up so you can coast a little bit. Okay? Because if you're fully pedal to the metal all the time, you will redline yourself. You will blow the engine of your business, of your emotional being, of your mental health. You will blow that engine if you do not take your foot off the gas and take in the scenery that you were driving to in the first place. That's the thing about the hustle culture. You'll hear it from anyone at the top. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm telling you right now, I've been in the rooms with the Titans. They have done the grind, but they have a team around them now that carries the hustle, okay? It's not them. They are now reaping the benefits of all their hard work and their strategic hires and the decisions they've made to build their empire. But the caveat is that they just brought other people to keep their feet on the gas for them, okay? And they got to go get into a new vehicle and relax a little bit at the end of it. Okay? Yeah. So when it comes down to the hustle, there were moments I had to learn hard lessons. I had to learn really hard lessons because I was going all in. I was like, babe, honey, this opportunity. And he's like, you've been gone for 10 days. He's like, this is not sustainable for us. And I had to look at my husband and say, you're right. It's not. So where could I start to say yes to opportunities that were in alignment? Say no, give someone else a chance. Choose not to work weekends. Choose not to work 60 hours, 80 hours in a week. Choose not to compromise and get on and answer my phone all the time. Choose not to abandon myself. Bring my value up versus chasing volume, right? So there comes a point where you create non-negotiables in your lifestyle. Non-negotiables of your time and your bandwidth. And I really started to implement this because while I've shared with you how much I adore my husband, when I was hustling too hard, I almost lost him due to the hustle. Because I was where I thought I was doing right by my career line or my experiences, I was making him wait. And I shouldn't have assumed that he would have wanted to wait. And it was those parts where I had to check in with, is this hustle worth it? Because I was not willing to lose what really mattered to me. It wasn't the bank account. It wasn't the accolade or the stages or none of that. What really mattered to me is that little girl and my husband. That's my core. You've heard that here today on this podcast. That's my absolute core. I will never compromise my family ever again. There were times that I did compromise my family for the hustle because I was like, babe, I've got this huge opportunity. The first time I was on the World Summit stage, they weren't there because they couldn't be. But I chose to be there and then get on a plane and fly back home and be there present for a family birthday party. And it was those things where I was like, can I handle this also? Can I handle the and? And it felt this impossible choice. Like, is it either or? And I had this core in me that was like, it doesn't have to be either or. I'm never going to compromise like this ever again. I'm never going to push myself to that limit ever again. My husband should not have to compromise for my dream like this. There were many other ways he may have handled the pressure or the moments where he held firm boundaries, but he should never have to compromise for our success the way that I was in those seasons of hustle. And so I really learned that you can hustle hard in your seasons, short runways, okay? Short runways. Giving yourself like, I'm in startup, I got to get this done. Shut it off. Give yourself automation, delegation. No shame in the automation or delegation game. There is no shame in truly allowing yourself to pass off a task to an automation or to a person. There is no more valor or value in making things more difficult for yourself.
Amazing.
And that's really important, really important. So you don't lose the real heart of it all, why you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for being so vulnerable, because I feel like it's very common for women or even men to be in that phase of like, I'm growing this and I'm doing it for my family. And actually, David Meltzer speaks a lot about this of like, if it's for your family, don't you need to be present for that family?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think when we get into the upper echelon of some of these arenas, it feels an impossible choice, where it's like, well, they can wait, so they can wait. And it's like, just because they can doesn't mean they have to. It doesn't mean they should.
Yeah.
And that's the part where I had to become aware. I didn't lose. Okay, I want every listener to hear, when I let go of opportunities, it only gave the opportunity to someone else who really needed it at that time. Like, truly gave them a chance. In fact, I called up some of my peers to give them opportunities. I called up my peers and said, they're actually fitting for this. I won't be able to do that event, but I know this person can. And I think they're a great fit for it. I was recommending my peers, giving them the chance. And although I was great at these things and I loved them so much and I was so great to be the first choice, but I really wanted to give my peers a chance too. And at the end of the day, I don't regret that. Not one bit. I don't ever regret choosing my family. Ever. You'll never regret that choice. You can always rebuild a business, find new opportunities, and people will respect you more for saying no. They will respect you so much more when you prioritize your family. I promise you that. They will respect you more when you prioritize what's important to you. They will respect you for saying no. Trust me in that. I've lived it. And that's why I will always encourage any mompreneur or any female entrepreneur listening today that you don't have to compromise your relationships or your family or yourself for opportunities. The opportunities will come. Bigger ones even. Sometimes a no is a redirection. Not just a no, you receiving a no, but you giving a no can be a redirection as well.
Beautiful answer. And oh my God, we actually got you crying.
Let me talk about my family, man. Because that was just a soft spot. My family is a soft spot because that's my entire life, y'all. Like, all this, when they say like it's for your family, it's like, yes. And I became an entrepreneur so I can be present. So I can be present. So I can go and have breakfast with my husband in the morning like I did today, and then teach, and then come and do this wonderful podcast, and then I'm going to be going and doing a thing with my daughter later this evening. I get to be present. I want to be present. It's my choice. And I will say no to things that if they're on the wrong dates, y'all, I'm not going to go, okay? If I have not missed a moment for my daughter. I've not missed a performance, a birthday. I've not missed any milestone moment for my career ever. And it's
hats off to you. That's incredible.
It's personal choice. I really would never compromise my daughter or my husband. Now, in my long stretch, it was the stretch of like, that was time away from home, but it was such an uncomfortable time away from home that my husband was like, this is not sustainable, because we need each other. We need to be around each other. I can't be without my family. Like, it's like they are my safety. They are everything. It was like I was on, like, it's like they regulate my nervous system. Like, I need them, like that when you create safety in your life like that, when you have that kind of stability and that kind of love, you should never compromise that, because it dysregulates you. It starts to creates a storm in your system. Like, it just, I was never willing to get in that place again, But yeah, that's the part maybe maybe some people don't want to talk about in entrepreneurship, but I'm willing to be a voice to transparency of it was never worth ever choosing my career or my family, because that's I would never choose my career over my family. I will always choose my family. Always.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what's the difference for you between aligned ambition and hustle that is rooted in fear?
I think some people that get rooted in their hustle out of fear is due to scarcity. And so they're afraid of not being enough or not having enough. So where I would challenge that is, what if you are enough? What if you are enough, and that's why you've had the vision on your heart to have a business, the vision on your heart to serve other people and to be of service to others, but where our servitude does not need to be self-sacrifice. And I think some people who get married to the hustle is because they learned that sacrifice equals success, where when we are in a game of business, there's a time and a place for hustle. And hustle is again, like I said earlier, short-lived. Should be short-lived.
Yeah.
Seasonal, even. And the grind doesn't stop. It just scales. So there's this part where people need to learn in business that hustle isn't self-sacrifice forever. Hustle is scale. In order to scale, you have to start hiring. You have to start getting out of your own way. You have to hustle in the direction of scale, which is, how can I make this feasible for me to bring other people in to replicate and duplicate for me, so that I can be an owner, not an owner operator. For a moment in startup, it will feel like hustle because you're owner operator as a solopreneur. And that part feels very much like I am the one, because I don't have the capital yet to invest into someone else, or you're not paying yourself yet. So it's all output. So you have this temporary season of hustle where you have to do whatever it takes to be profitable. But that is not sustainable, my friends, to be on that level of solopreneuring where you're owner operating all the time forever. That is not meant to be long lived. That is meant to be short lived. And if you're not profitable, then you have to really look at, what are you doing? Where are you avoiding the real work? Because being busy is not what moves the needle. And where we have to look at our ability to really anchor in when our authority is what builds a culture in a brand. Authority isn't just us like, I'm the boss, Authority is, do you have people who are bought into your vision? Do you lead them with true connectivity to what you want from the brand? Can the brand operate without you? Because if you have the right operators in place, the brand can operate without you. And there's a point as an owner where you become the owner, not just the owner. I mean, you become the owner, not just the operator, right? It's like that part is a really tough part. That's where a lot of the bottlenecks happen in scale, because the owner's so committed to being the operator. They've hustled all this time and they're afraid that it's going to break if they delegate. If they bring on another leader. They're fear-based hustle because they're afraid no one else is going to do it as good as them.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part.
So I'm curious, because you've led at the highest levels of coaching and personal development, how has your relationship with leadership changed over the years?
Ooh, that's a good question. Man. Not all leadership is good leadership, It's like you see leaders in place and you're like, man, some people take leadership and say, I'm the boss. Leadership is not conforming, okay? Leadership is stewardship, in my eyes. I look at, how can we steward a team so that this team, one, we have the players in the right places that they feel compelled in, that they feel in their zone of genius in, and enjoy their zone of genius in their work, so that their output is fulfilling. Okay. Leadership is The best leaders I've worked with are the ones that are not afraid to do the hustle work when necessary. Like the ones that are okay with being the owner, but also okay with operating where they might need to for a little bit to bridge the gaps when there's gaps happening, or strategically get someone to bridge the gap for them. Can they afford it? And the best leaders I've seen are the ones that lead from a space of resilience. They're a very resilient individual. So they lead with a sense of compassion, not empathy, compassion. There's two things. Empathy is I absorb this as my own. Compassion is I see that, I care about it, and I know how to keep myself compartmentalized over here. And those leaders are able to have public presence and very private lives. Okay? Like leadership is the ability to be present with your team, with your organization, with your business, and have a very private life so that they know you, but they're not in your intimate details of your life, so that they feel connected to you, but they're not a part of your like your family, you know, in that way. And there's great company culture when people feel like, gosh, this is I love working here. And good leadership is you're not meant to work here forever, and I want to prepare you for that. You're meant for more. You should strive for more. You should outgrow this place. You should want to be better and do better. That is where I look at leadership, through that lens of how can I empower a team and empower individuals to truly outgrow a space and to not be complacent. You know, some leaders, bosses, leaders are okay with complacency, keeping people in their place. Know your place. That's poor leadership, really poor leadership when you have those leaders that come in and, you know, just try to strike people down versus how can I uplift, how can I outgrow, you know. So that's my take on it. And I've worked with some great leaders, and I've worked with some very challenging leaders. And
I think we all have.
yeah, I think we all have. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but those challenging leaders, man, do they operate out of ego? They operate out of ego, where the compelling leaders, the good leaders, they operate out of a space of growth mindset. Yeah. They operate out of a space of compelling their teams to it's not about them. It's not about the leader. The leader's like, this isn't about me. This is about us. This is an us project. You know, this is not a me, you know? Yeah. And so I think that's a big one, I think.
Beautiful. Now we're going to shift a little bit of our gears just because I'm curious. And I know you've been very transparent about your weight loss journey. Yeah. I've actually been on my own as well. And I just want to acknowledge that when you do major weight loss of any sorts, it can hit you on so many different levels. The body dysmorphia can be real depending on how much you lose.
Yes.
Like, I still find myself personally, I don't know if you've had this experience where you're in the clothing aisle and you're like, extra, extra, extra large. Yeah. And you're like, wait, that would be like way too huge on me right now.
Oh my gosh, yes. I've definitely had that, like, where I will purchase something or I'll like go try something on and I'm like, no way. Like, cause I like don't buy clothes often. So like when I go to buy clothes, I'm like, what size am I actually like?
Right.
I wear a lot of stretchy pants. Okay.
Same, especially post-COVID.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how would you say it is more rooted in self-trust rather than force? And what did that process of going through the weight loss journey teach you about alignment?
Yeah, this is so good. And I want to demystify for any of the listeners here where weight loss, in the sense of where we might be talking about our bodies changing and the weight that we lose physically. Everything we've talked about today is a driving factor of how your body will respond to your stress and your input. And so when it came to weight loss, it was in pursuit of how can I take care of myself? Because when I really start to care for myself, my body's going to respond accordingly. Mm-hmm. When I abandoned myself, I would Unfortunately, I struggle with binge eating. And so I would have these episodes where when I was struggling, I would physically quickly manifest that weight right back onto my body because I would sabotage myself because that was quick control. So where I learned to channel my energy out of control over food and really channel my energy out of control over emotion was a big game changer for me. And so I learned to process my emotion differently, where I will move my body, I will tap into my modalities, my healing modalities. And I really started to retrain my brain and body on its response to fight or flight and stress. And over time, I've had, when we talk about weight loss journey, my gosh, I've been as high as 300 pounds and as low as 130 pounds. Yeah. And I'm 5'6". Okay. So 300 pounds on my frame, my friends, let me tell you, who is she? I don't know her, but man, was I genuinely hurting. I was hurting physically, emotionally, mentally hurting, and that manifested on my body and my bones. And it was a challenge to carry that weight with me every single day. And growing up, and anyone that's listening here, as women, we're very much fed diet culture. That is, well, here's a quick fix. And if only you lost this weight, then you would be noticed. If you lost this weight, then you would find your perfect partner. Then you would be valuable. And that is a fucking lie. Okay? That is a lie. You are valuable now. You know, my sweet, loving husband that I love so much with my entire heart has loved me at every size, hair color, season of feral. He has seen me through it all. He has been an example that someone will unconditionally love you, okay? And you deserve to love yourself more than anything. My husband is a huge part of my life, but did not love me to my standard size, okay? I had to love myself enough to care about my body, my system, my health. And I'm not talking like, oh, lose weight to be healthy. Like, some people truly need to understand that, yes, there sometimes is underlying health conditions that do create resistance and weight loss. And you can still live a healthy, happy lifestyle and accept your body for what it does for you, even if you're dealing with autoimmune disease or any kind of physical ailment that's manifesting in your weight. What's important is that you nurture your body and your mind as best as you can. Advocate for yourself. I had to learn that I didn't realize I had so much resistance to certain foods, like inflammation wise. Like, I am a lot of foods are very inflammatory for me. Did not know that about myself. And I was like, oh, I'm a binge eater. And it was really like, yeah, no wonder I would put so much weight on, because I was inflaming my body with the foods that I was going to. So it wasn't a fat problem, okay? It was an inflammation problem. And the body will leave you clues all the time. It's like, really understand your data. And for all the business listeners here, like, our body gives us data. I'm one of those people, like, as I'm waving around my hand with an Oura ring on, because I check that data every day. Did I sleep well? Yeah. And if I step on my scale and my scale went down, it's because I actually slept. If my scale goes up, maybe I'm about to start my cycle. Maybe I didn't sleep at all last night, and my body's like, help, and that's inflamed. So it's like, where we have to really reposition in our mindset, what is our body symptomatically showing us? Because symptomatically, if we're unresolved in some of our traumas and dramas, our body is still in fight or flight. So it's holding the cortisol. It's holding the cortisol on our body. Our body is releasing so much cortisol that we're holding weight in our body as inflammation. And so there's these factors. I really needed to advocate for myself on, what does my body actually need? Like, F all the diet culture. This isn't about a diet. What nutrition do I need? What movement do I enjoy? What am I deficient in my vitamins and my supplementation that I need? Where am I lacking on sleep and self-care? When's the last time I left my house? Have I actually left my house in a week? Like, what? I'm looking out a window. Have I walked on that street today? No. Like, it's those pieces where, like, where do you need to check in with your health, all of your health, not just your physical health. Your physical is the symptomatic outcome of all the other categories of your health. The way that your body manifests its changes and its weight fluctuation is data for you. We have to remove the emotion from the data. You know, that's the hard part, because a lot of us were trained like, oh my God, you're obese, so you're worthless. Fuck that. Sorry for my language.
Oh, you're fine. You're allowed to cuss here.
My apologies, listeners. But it's that part that really eats my soul, right? Because growing up, it was always ingrained that, oh, well, she's the fat friend. She's the fat, funny friend. She's never going to really find a good partner. She's not worthy enough. She's too big. I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the part that's like, I am the funny friend, and where like at the end of the day, my weight was a symptom to so many factors of my life. Anytime I've ever talked to a woman who's struggled with obesity, she 9 times out of 10 has some deep-rooted trauma factors. She's living in survival mode. She's in a relationship that's suffocating her. She lacks boundaries. She's had some type of health ailment in her life because the weight has caused a health ailment. And it's all deeply rooted in not truly getting to advocate for themselves the way they deserve. Yeah. And that is a journey in its own. And I've lost 130 pounds. Woo! And it's a whole nother person off of my body, which is so wild, because I don't recognize myself from the past. So I see her, and sometimes I forget how much pain she was in, and processing that pain over the last several years. Okay, a major weight loss journey is not a quick fix. Okay, my friends, so a lot of deep things there that take years, and then to maintain the weight loss, to maintain this version of you, to become the next version. That's the part. But
beautiful. I'm curious though, and we'll slowly start wrapping it up, but how does honoring your body change the way you lead?
Ooh, this is a good one. You know, when I honor my body, I show up as an example for others. I show up as an example. And you know what? Here's the thing. I'm not the beauty standard by everyone's eyes. Okay, you're gonna see all these influencers out there who think that like, you know, ice baths and all these things are the way to be. But in reality, my regulated nervous system, for me to be able to say no when I want to rest when I need to not explain myself, and when I sit down to eat a meal, I don't need to explain why. That's more important to me than anyone else's judgment upon my body or what they think I should be doing. And going back to what we talked about in the beginning, I don't have to explain myself to people who assume that my journey isn't complete and that I need to continue losing weight, or that they don't have any idea of how far I've already come in that journey. Mm-hmm. And so I get to a state of just not explaining myself. And in my leadership and in my business, when I am taking care of me, I'm also taking care of my clientele. I get to show up as the best version of me. Now, every day is not always a good day, okay, listeners, my friends. Let me tell you, like, you will have days that are heavy and you don't get to eat because you're doing 755 things, and you still can allow yourself rest and grace and space and know that not every single day is a checklist, okay? Like, living is a checklist, for goodness sake, gosh. Like, but also, too, being mindful of what your body needs, what your mind needs. And when you're taking care of that, everything else can really be in a flow state. Like, you can really flow in your life when you are taking care of you first. It's not selfish. It's necessary. Anyone that's truly hit their pinnacle of success, they all say that. They all prioritize their rest, their rejuvenation, their health because if they go down, their business goes down. And it's like, you got to take care of this vessel so that your business can live on. And eventually, when you do create an exit or you do step down as the owner operator role, is your business healthy? Because if you're making unhealthy decisions for you, what decisions are being made in the business that ultimately are not healthy for the business either? It's
Amazing.
it's an embodiment, you know?
Yes, and how you do one thing is usually how you do everything.
Yeah, yeah. And I still have moments like I struggle with belief systems that creep up sometimes, like comparison will kick in sometimes, and then I get into that point where I'm like, what am I comparing myself to? Like
Too.
what unrealistic expectation is that? That's not for me to absorb, right?
Yeah.
It's like that reminder that when these unrealistic expectations come forward and you see them for what they are, they're not for you to absorb. That's why they're unrealistic,
Yeah.
you know?
Beautiful. And then shifting gears back to the coaching industry for a sec before we wrap.
Yeah.
I've heard you say we're currently in a trust recession. What do you
Yeah.
mean by that? And where do you think that trust has been compromised?
Ooh, this is a great question. I would say, like, as a trust recession, when we look at people, people have had pretty, not the best sales tactics on how they're selling things. Also with AI in the mix, we don't know, is that AI or is that a real person? And the trust is being lost because people are trying to emulate themselves and they're not doing the best job at it, or they're trying to replicate someone else and that's not true to them. And people aren't following trends as much as they're following human behavior now, like real humanizing of the human experience. And when we look at the trust that needs to be built, twofold in how people do things. One, trust is always built in your integrity. Your integrity is the one thing you should never compromise in any part of business, any part of your existence. Your integrity is your business card. If you compromise on that integrity, you will lose trust forever. You will lose trust from clients. You will lose trust from peers. You will lose trust from relationships. Do not compromise your integrity. That's very important. How you show up in your authenticity should never lack integrity. And if you're trying to be something, if you're trying to reach for something, it's felt. It's felt. People are becoming so much more hypersensitive to the try hard. And it's very important that we just be in flow. You don't have to try to do anything when you are authentically you. You're going to magnet people to you automatically by being authentic. That is why we are seeing more and more these creators or these celebrities or these people that are true to themselves being highlighted more. Like being true to themselves because they don't care what anybody thinks. They just care about showing up authentic to them because they're not willing to compromise their authenticity for fame or for money or none of that. And at the end of the day, like, that's where trust goes, where people's energy is, where people's like true essence is where the trust flows. And we've all felt it. We've all felt it when like someone gives you the ick is because they're not showing up authentically them.
Yeah.
They're showing up to try to sell. They're showing up to try to take. They're showing up to with an alternative motive. And it's felt. And then you see it and you're like, ugh, no. It's okay to be different than that. I know that some people make a lot of money being that way. It's not sustainable. It's just not. What's sustainable is when you don't have to try to cover up your tracks. What's sustainable is when you don't have to try to make something right that was a wrong. What's sustainable is when you show up organically, authentically you, and you don't have to go back and explain yourself because you're consistent. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. Like, people are, what's the secret to success? It's like, be consistently you. Keep growing, keep evolving, but be authentically you. And maybe there's people who get challenged and they've lost trust. And then they realize and they look in the mirror and they say, how do I make sure that this doesn't happen again? Okay? There's people who do have the comeback stories where they rebuild trust and they re-anchor trust, and that they show people they've changed because they needed to learn whatever hard lesson they learned because they weren't being truthful and they weren't being authentic and organic. That can happen too. But you can avoid that just by being truly wholly you from the get-go, from the start. And then trust is built off of who you are on the what is, not the what if.
Oof. And that's another mic drop. All right. So as we wrap, I'm just curious if our listeners want to connect with you, what is the best way to do so? I feel like, I mean, you are just full of so much wisdom and so much like nuggets that how can people connect?
So if you feel compelled to connect, you can always go to my website, brandimunguia.com. My name's here on the podcast. You can spell it out. Don't worry. It's just my first and last name.com. And that has all my social media there. You can email me. You can shoot me a text. I'm on social media. Everything's under my first and last name. And you're welcome to connect with me on any of those channels. But I'm so grateful to support and serve here today.
Beautiful. And actually, one last final closing question before we get into our rapid fire. If a leader is listening and they feel tired or disillusioned, but still called to make an impact, what would you say to them?
Quick answer, rest. That's my quick answer, rest. Because in the rest period, you might get more clarity. And that means fully rest, disconnect. Okay. Disconnect doesn't mean loss of momentum. All right. You can disconnect for 24 hours. Really, like 3 days is a sweet spot for a good disconnect, but really allowing yourself to truly disconnect from the grind for a couple of days will help you reconnect with what you actually want. Sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees, you know? So you got to get out of the forest for a second to actually see the trees.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's like in our business. Sometimes we gotta set it down for just a couple of days. Not a couple months, friends, not a year, a couple of days to get some clarity and rest and breathe, and then revisit it and really ask your guides, your God, whoever, whatever you believe in for that guidance. Really drop in with, where am I blind right now? Where am I losing momentum, in what am I putting attention to I don't need to be? And let yourself make tough choices, but give yourself some grace and space to get some clarity when needed. You'll burn out if you don't.
Beautiful. All right, so we're going to end with a rapid fire. Think a word or a sentence, but really quick answers.
Okay.
Are you ready for me?
Yes.
All right. One word for your current season.
Ooh. Expansion.
Beautiful. A belief about success you've released.
Belief about success is not self-sacrifice. That's for sure. That's a release. Success does not equal self-sacrifice.
Beautiful. A book that's changed your life.
Man. These are all my favorites back here, but one book that like really comes forward, I recommend to everyone, is The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weiss. That's one of
so good.
One of my favorite books I recommend to everyone.
Beautiful. A song that makes you just like dance, brings you joy.
This Version of You by Odessa, my favorite song. Yeah.
Gonna have to check that one out.
A good one.
A practice that keeps you grounded.
Simple practice, trail running. I walk on a trail almost daily. It's like literally my most grounded. Get outside.
Best advice you've ever received in a single sentence.
Oh, man. I'd have to say it's from my father. And my dad said growing up, you have big energy. Don't ever let anyone break your spirit.
That is so good, because we're so often told you're too much. So beautiful. That is such a beautiful nugget from your father. And then a thing in the coaching industry that people need to stop doing.
Man,
I feel like that's gonna be top one.
No, honestly, I think what people in the coaching industry need to stop doing, it's not so much a practice, it's more of like undervaluing, you know? If you keep undervaluing yourself or your peers, no momentum happens in there. There's other
Beautiful.
practices I could speak on, but that's one thing I feel is compelled to say in regards to the coaches listening. Like, one thing coaches could stop doing is undervaluing yourself and abandoning yourself and the project.
Yeah. Okay, and finally, I end my podcast with this last question for everyone, and that is, what is one thing you want women to stop apologizing for?
Man, stop apologizing for being the big energy that you are. Stop making yourself small to be palatable. You're strong, you are capable, you are worthy of creating the life of your dreams. Truly.
Beautiful answer. So as we come to a close of this conversation, I want to invite you guys to pause for a moment, not to dissect what was said, but actually to notice what stayed with you, what felt steady, what felt true. This wasn't a conversation about doing more or fixing an entire industry. It was about responsibility, integrity, and the courage it takes to lead in a way that doesn't abandon your heart or yourself in the process. Brandi, I want to thank you again for the way you lead with clarity, honesty, and care by naming what many are feeling and for reminding us that rising doesn't have to come at the cost of alignment. If you're listening and feel disillusioned, tired, or unsure who to trust, let this be a gentle reminder. Discernment isn't distance, it's actually wisdom. And slowing down isn't failure, it's how we return to what matters. Take one insight from today and let it quietly guide how you show up this week in your work, your decisions, and your relationships. There's no pressure to change everything at once, just an invitation to stay rooted and guided in what's true for you. You'll find ways to connect with Brandi and her work in the show notes, and until next time, lead with heart, move with integrity, and trust that the way you rise, when it's grounded and true, helps rebuild trust, first within yourself and then in the world around you.
So good. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor to be here with you today. Thank you, Anita.
And also, thank you for being able to just riff, because this conversation was incredible.
Thank you. You asked really great questions. It was so wonderful.